Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining our live stream tonight. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I got my green on. Savannah has her green couch, though. Savannah Levins joining us tonight. Savannah, you've been working on this Where's the Money special. Tell everybody what they can tune in tonight at 11/4 to watch.
Well, Sarah, you had to call me out for not wearing green. Appreciate that. So tonight we're working on a story about, right now there's a really difficult situation where a lot of people can't afford to stay in their homes. I mean, you're talking right now about stimulus checks, etc. People have been getting unemployment. So some might wonder, well, how can someone not afford to pay the rent or pay their mortgage? But you're looking at this eviction moratorium that's been in place since September that's protected people from being evicted, but they're still on the hook to pay. So a lot of people have had this accumulate over months and months and months, and now they're in this pit of debt, essentially, that could lead to them being evicted. So the story, this series we're working on tonight that's airing at 11 p.m. is called I Can't Afford My Home. And unfortunately, that's an issue, a sentiment a lot of people are sharing right now.
So I want to say, if you do have a question, we can read your comments, which some people are saying they can't hear us. Hopefully, I don't know what's going on. So anyway, now we can. Yay, Angela. All right. So what I was going to say is, if you do have a question, though, we can read your comments if you have a specific question for Savannah. Savannah, I have some questions here for you. So first, talk about renters facing this looming deadline. Explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I think people said they couldn't hear when I was talking, so hopefully you guys can hear me. But so the CDC eviction moratorium that I mentioned that's been in place since September, that was put in place essentially saying landlords cannot evict people for non-payment because of the pandemic. So people who can't afford to pay the rent, you can't just kick them out on the streets. The CDC said that it was a public health issue because if we had all these people on the streets all of a sudden, that in itself is a health hazard. So that was put in place in September. It's been in place. It's been extended several times. It is set to expire March 31st. So when we talk about that looming deadline, that's only a few more weeks before these people not only don't have that protection anymore, but have to pay up. So landlords can start going to eviction court and, move forward with eviction proceedings. Millions of people could stand to be evicted when this moratorium expires. And, this is something that a lot of people are dealing with right now. And then, like I said, the people are still on the line to pay. The moratorium didn't forgive rent. So, if they can't pay it, if they can't catch up, the landlords now, starting March 31st, will have the right to evict those tenants, and housing advocates are really, really worried about that.
So what about protections for homeowners?
So yeah, homeowners is a little bit different. They actually have more protections right now than renters do. President Biden's administration extended the mortgage moratorium, the mortgage forbearance and the moratorium through June. So homeowners have a little more leeway through June, but the eviction moratorium for renters, that is set to still expire March 31st.
I don't know if you want to jump in on any of these, Savannah. Some people asking, still haven't received my stimulus check. Someone else asking about HOPE funds. Will they have to pay taxes on the amount they were granted? Someone else wondering about stimulus for the disabled. I don't know if you're kind of the expert here, if there's any of those questions you want to tackle.
Sure. So Jamie, your question about the HOPE funds, if you have to pay taxes on them, I would have to look into that. I do not believe so. I think that those are not taxable because it's not technically income, but I would have to double check on that. So don't take that for my word. A lot of people asking about the stimulus checks. I never got my second stimulus check, James. And Angela asking those same questions. So we are getting a lot of questions about stimulus checks. And while on one hand, that seems like It's not a part of the housing story. It really is, because people need that money. Part of the purpose of this money being pushed through is so people can pay things like rent and their mortgage. So for those who have not received their first or second stimulus check, what you want to do is want to claim that as a recovery rebate credit when you file your 2020 taxes. So it'll just ask you, did you receive, first and second stimulus check? If you are eligible, you just say no, and you'll get that money in form of a tax credit. For people who still haven't gotten their third check, wait a little bit longer. Those checks are still going out. The IRS just recently reopened the check get my payment tool, so you can go on irs.gov and check the status. But really, people don't need to panic yet if they haven't seen that third check, because they're still rolling out over the next few weeks. And I know Emma, our web producer, just posted in the comments a link to the latest on all the stimulus checks. I did a story about this recently where we went and kind of answered some of the biggest Q&As on that. So people can find those resources on WCNC.com/money, tons of resources on what to do if you never received your check. But you're owed that money, and you'll hopefully get it eventually. A lot of people obviously just can't wait. And again, that ties back into this story we're talking about tonight, Sarah, is people need to pay the bills.
Yeah, they do. And that link, like you said, has so many good resources in it. Let's talk about this next question. With all the federal and state relief bills passing, has there been funding to help people pay those bills?
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about, millions of people could be evicted by the end of March, your natural thought is, wait a minute, didn't we just pass trillions of dollars in COVID relief, both federally and statewide? And the answer is yes, but sadly, the demand is just so huge. I mean, you look at the North Carolina HOPE program, for example, that, used some of that federal money to help people pay their bills and stay in their homes. I think the applications for that closed after a few days because demand was so overwhelming. The same with the South Carolina equivalent, the SC Stay program. That closed after a few days. There were just way too many people applying. Even when the HOPE program in North Carolina was replenished with a new round of funding, that only lasted a few more days. And even the people who got payments, a lot of them said it wasn't even enough to pay their bills. So, when we're talking about this potential housing crisis, is what housing advocates are calling this, potentially millions of people evicted at the end of this month. And you want to say there's got to be funding, and in some places there are, but it is a full-time job for a lot of people to try to find it.
Becky just asking, where and how do people that need rent money that was approved in the stimulus need?
Yes, so that's a good point. There is some good news. That latest federal bill does include more money, more relief. So likely these programs like HOPE, SC Stay will be replenished again. So people definitely should watch out for those. There's links on WCNC.com/money for people to check for that. So yeah, I mean, these bills will replenish some of those programs. It's just how far, that can stretch is a great question. And WCNC Charlotte, again, our producer Emma just posted again in the chat that we answered some FAQs about stimulus questions. So anyone asking about stimulus questions, please click that link below in the comments, and hopefully you'll get all your questions answered. But yeah, as far as funding, hopefully those programs will be replenished. But again, how far can it go when you have millions of people struggling? And I have a stat that I want to mention. Let me pull it up so that I get it right. So a national study was recently done, and they found the average renter who's been protected under the eviction moratorium, which is expiring March 31st, is on average 4 months behind on rent and owes at least $5,600. So, I mean, you look at the stimulus check, even if you get that $1,400 stimulus check and maybe unemployment and maybe some HOPE money, like a few $100s, that doesn't even cover the $5,600 average for all these millions of Americans who are back and back pay and still struggling.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Is there a chance the eviction moratorium could be extended past that March 31st expiration date that you were talking about?
Yeah, that is a great and very big question right now. I recently read that 2,000 organizations and advocacy groups nationwide recently came together to urge President Biden's administration to extend that. However, there's, it's a double-edged sword with that, because there's a lot of people pushing against extending it. They're saying this has been extended so many times. I mean, think about people like landlords. I've interviewed several, and they say, look, I don't want to kick anyone out on the street, but I haven't gotten any money either. Like, these people like are able to push back their payments, but the landlords still have to pay their bills. And in the story tonight, you'll hear from a realtor who says landlords are going into foreclosure, and then those people are being kicked out. So it's just such a terrible cycle. So, a lot of landlords advocacy groups, they don't want this to be extended. They're saying, look, I need to have some sort of payment. I need to have some sort of recourse to get paid. I need to do what's best to keep, my lights on. So it's a really tricky situation.
So if there's anyone watching that wants to reach you, if they want to tell you their story, if they have a story idea, if they have a specific question, how can they reach you?
So my personal email is slevins@wcnc.com. You see it right down there on your screen. You can also email the Defenders at WCNC.com. If you have a money specific question, like unemployment question, stimulus question, you can email money@WCNC.com. All of these emails, they'll still get to us. And we have been answering, dozens of calls and emails a day, trying to help people sort through these issues, because like I mentioned earlier, really it is a full-time job, and it is our full-time job to navigate this stuff. But the average American is dealing with so much already and doesn't have the time to be spending all day looking for help and trying to figure out how they're going to stay in their home. So we're doing our best to help people out. And I hope people can catch this story tonight at 11. We're going to be doing a deeper dive and talking about the resources that are available. By the way, if you're a homeowner, we found a lot of mortgage assistance available in Mecklenburg County in particular. 90% of it is going unused right now. So we're going to talk about that and what renters can do as well.
Awesome. Well, that story is tonight at 11. Savannah Levins, thank you so much. Always appreciate it. And I look forward to watching your story tonight.